Hello and welcome to a very exciting episode of The Courthouse. The Courthouse, it's all about the law, and we've been talking about the various rudiments of the law in this very special season. And this particular episode is more exciting because we are celebrating the President of the Believers Love World Nation, Reverend Dr. Chris Oyahilome, DSC DD, my pastor, my man of God, my teacher and mentor. And there have been various celebrations going on to mark the anniversary of his birth. Let's take a look at some of these highlights. Stay with us.
It was a most colorful event with members and staff of the Believers Love World Nation coming together to celebrate and appreciate the man of God, Pastor Chris. Those who were present were adorned in colorful and outstanding costumes and carnival headgear to bring variety and spice to the event. The Eve party featured several music ministers who sang in honor of Pastor Chris amidst plenty music, dance, and various contests. Right now. Always rising. Everywhere we are, we're always shining. When the man of God arrived, he was flanked by members of the BLW Central Executive Council and was greeted by a special guest of honor, televangelist Pastor Benny Hinn, who came to be with him in this glorious occasion. There was also the Celebrity Chef Contest, which takes place every year on Pastor's birthday, where senior pastors show their culinary skills. The winners, Team USA/Canada. A major highlight was the Flourishing Parade, which saw different departments parade and salute Pastor Chris. The celebration continues in honor of Reverend Dr. Chris Oyahilome, whose very life and ministry has impacted and blessed millions of people all around the world. Happy birthday, Pastor Chris.
Well, if you're just joining us, this is the Courthouse, and this episode is dedicated to Pastor Chris, widely known as Pastor Chris, my man of God, and we're celebrating him. But earlier on the show, we started a topic on malicious prosecution, and we had Barrister Destiny Obun-Takon telling us about the concept of malicious prosecution, and we did promise that there will be a second part of that topic. Now we'll go back to our discussion on malicious prosecution. Stay with us. We talked about malicious prosecution some time ago, and I promised that we would continue on that topic, giving you deeper information into the concept of malicious prosecution. And my panelist that time was Barrister Destiny Obun-Takon, and is here in flesh and blood. Barrister Takon, I like to call you my regular panelist and co-host. You're welcome once again to the Courthouse.
Yes, thank you very much, Ito, and good day, viewers.
You know, the other time we were talking about malicious prosecution, and I said you must complete that which you started.
Exactly.
So now you're here again. Can you give us an overview?
Yes, I am. Well, just to get some viewers to speed, who probably did not listen to the first verse or episode of this particular topic, with malicious damage, malicious prosecution. Well, that's another area of the law, malicious damage. Yeah. Malicious prosecution has to do with where somebody is prosecuted either for a criminal matter or a civil matter without probable cause, without good cause, without, what do you want to say, good grounds. Okay. So as a term, malicious, the phrase malicious itself, what it says means that there's presence of malice in that prosecution. Of course, at law, when we say prosecution, even if you file a civil suit against somebody, it's prosecution as well. You know, not necessarily until you're prosecuted, you know, for crime. You know, so where somebody initiates an action, a civil action or a criminal proceedings against you, in circumstances that you would rightly say that the person did not have reasonable grounds, probable cause, or reasonable suspicion, depending on whether it is a civil or criminal matter, then of course we say that prosecution was malicious. And as part of the ingredients, you must have been victorious. Victorious in the sense that the matter ended in your favor, either all the way down to judgment, or that the prosecution withdrew the matter against you, or the person who filed the suit, the civil suit against you, discontinued it by himself. And then, of course, the essence of it is to ensure, to strike a balance, as it were. The very entire regime of malicious prosecution is to strike a balance between the necessity for people to be brought to justice, whether for civil or criminal wrongs, and also for people who are let me use the victims, or on the other side, the receiving side of that action, to also be able to seek justice against somebody who initiates that judicial process against him or her without probable cause. So it's striking a balance between the two. You have a right to bring me to justice where there is probable cause. But where there's no probable cause and you bring me to justice, I have a right to also go back to the same judicial process and say I was maliciously prosecuted, in humiliation, in expenses, in my time, in my having to defend this matter, in emotional and psychological trauma. So I am asking the court to award damages in my favor against the person who initiated either the civil or criminal proceedings against me. So that's what it's about.
Interesting. And you basically talked about the fact that malicious prosecution cuts across both criminal and civil cases. Exactly. So can you give us, I know the last time you gave us some examples, can you give us further examples of cases that may constitute malicious prosecution?
Okay, let's take, for instance, I'll start with the criminal, which is the most common, as it were, because I've said most common because in our climb, we have a police system, a police force that is prone to venturing into pure civil matters, all for the simple reason that the police officer or officers involved, want an occasion to extort, money in the name of course, ransom for bail, usually. And what form does it take? I'd used before the instance of a landlord and tenant. I could even say a simple case of a debtor, and in the case of, okay, let me say, a borrower and a lender. Somebody borrows money from somebody and then he's not able to pay the money when he said he would, or he may have paid some and not all. And rather than go to the court, approach the court for an action for recovery of debt, the person chooses to go to the police and say, already he would say he's owing me. He collected money from me and said he would pay me on so date and couldn't pay or did not pay, or he paid some and has not completed it. And the police go after the fellow and target obtaining under false pretenses.
False pretense, just to coin it in such a way that it's
to give legitimacy to their action. Whereas it is outrightly, or it was outrightly, a case of indebtedness. Of course, the fact and circumstances of that case, would bear out that it was a simple case of indebtedness, and you see even banks these days resorting to police action against their customers rather than go to court to maintain an action for recovery of debt. What do? At the point when you're asking for a facility, they ask you, as part of the collateral, they ask you to drop a post-dated or even an undated check.
Okay.
So, and what do? They wait when when the facility is due and redeemable, and knowing fully well that you had failed for good or bad reason to make good on your obligation as a borrower from the bank.
Okay.
They date that check, take it to the bank, present it, get it stamped, and then go to the police and say, you issued them a dot check.
Dot check, and that's a crime.
So these are, you could see a clear case as I've narrated.
Malicious prosecution, you've been hearing from Barrister Takon, simply connotes a situation where someone goes to court, initiates proceedings, whether criminal or civil, maliciously, just because you don't really have probable cause. You just take these matters to court and you start prosecuting the person. But of course, the law has remedy for such victims, and that is why we are telling you this on the courthouse. We'll take a listen to this quick report, and our legal nuggets will be back with more. Stay with us.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Pastor. We love you from the Happy Church, Christ Embassy, Yaba, Lagos Zone 3. We love you. We wish you a happy birthday. Thank you for leading us in the path of success from victory to victory. We love you, Pastor. And on this very special day, we join the hosts of heaven and all the saints around the world to wish you happy birthday.
Glory, 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 glory. Today, December 7th, is the birthday of my father, my life coach, my pastor, Reverend Chris Oyakilome, DSC, DD. Pastor, thank you for who you are to many of us all over the world. Millions celebrate you today because you have been a unique person in their life. You have given their life a meaning. You've brought to them and for them the word of God, authentic word of God, the gospel of our Lord Jesus Christ. Thank you. The host of heaven celebrates you.
They are our encyclopedia of God's revelation. Our father, our president, our life coach. I am amazed and thankful to God that I'm a part of your ministry and of your grace. I thank God so much because in all of my learning, of course, I'm a legal practitioner, but I thank God that all that I've learned in this ministry, I could not have learned away from here for 30 years. Reading all of the books. Pastor, you're a blessing to me. You're a blessing to our world. I love you so much. And I pray that God, Jehovah Almighty, will continually strengthen you and imbue you with greater and increasing revelation from day to day, that you would feed and nourish us. We love you so much, and say, God bless you.
You're welcome back. This is still the courthouse, and we're talking about malicious prosecution. Indeed, this is the second time we're talking about the topic because there's so much for you to learn about malicious prosecution. And I have Barrister Destiny Obun-Takon with me, who's been telling us about the concept of malicious prosecution. Barrister Takon, you gave us some ingredients of this concept of law. We need to know, I want to institute an action because someone maliciously prosecuted me, in quotes. How do I identify the ingredients of what constitutes malicious prosecution?
Well, like I said, as I brought listeners, rather viewers, to speed, I had said the content of malice must be there. Okay. As a matter of fact, that's what really makes it malicious. But that qualifies
malice
it.
Could be
malicious
subjective.
So exactly, I'm coming to it. So I'm saying as a basis for understanding for our viewers. Like malice generally means, of course, there was bad faith. There was no probable cause. There was no good reason. There was absence of good faith. That's to say, as I've given the instance, I'd like to just put it from the beginning. I give an instance of a landlord, all right, who wants his tenant out, as I did in the first instance, in the first episode of this topic, and who simply, without even having a phone call or any communication whatsoever, you know, because the tenant has refused, maybe after issuance of notice to quit or non-issuance at all, maybe he had told him previously and said, I want you out of the place, and the fellow has been stubborn in the sense that he has not gone out. So he goes to the police station and he alleges threat to his life. And then the police come and arrest the tenant. You know, I give that instance, and I like to really use as a very clear case of occasion for malicious prosecution. You know, for seeking that remedy. And then the police detain the fellow based on the mere oral complaint of the landlord. And from there, arraign him in court, you know. By the time they come into court, maybe they realize, as it does happen in this climb, that, okay, if we go for threat to life, the magistrate might ask and say, where's the written threat? And they say, conduct likely to cause a breach of the peace. You know, being that is what they now tune, because they want to give some semblance of criminality. And so they bring that and bring the fellow to court. And in the course of evidence, it is shown that the man never had any contact with the landlord. The man had simply been told to move out, and he had, for good or bad reason, said did not go out. Maybe he still needed more time, or he had not had money to be able to pay for another accommodation. And so he was still holding on. And a situation which the law recognizes and protects the tenant, and insists that the landlord takes certain proper steps by way of due process, you know, and then he rather goes to the police, and the police take that action, and in the course of evidence, all of this is shown. And then the court at the end of the day says, the fellow is discharged and acquitted. You know, so the ingredients there are what? The malice is in the fact that the landlord never had probable cause against the tenant, all right? All he wanted, his motive was to get him out of the premises. That was the reason he took him to the police. The police should have known that, of course, that fellow had done nothing in the supposed investigation of the matter. And then, contrary to what was even reported to them, which was threat to life, because they knew that the fellow, there was nothing for him to answer, they brought in a different charge to give the semblance of criminality, which is what? Conduct likely to cause a breach of the peace. A policeman who goes out of his way in that circumstance to fetch, you know, and to shop for a proper charge for an innocent man, you know, as the evidence would have revealed, you know, makes himself liable for malicious prosecution. In the same manner, when a policeman goes out of his way to fish for evidence at all costs, as it were, in order to incriminate and get a conviction against a citizen, and in the course of evidence, the court observes that and pronounces on it that indeed the policeman did that, he disposes himself to malicious prosecution. And these are things I say that happen so very often in this climb, where it is seen as if every matter that goes to court must end in a conviction. And in this climb, where most matters that have no business going to court at all, yes, it is bad enough that the landlord has brought that fellow to the police. The police should be able to say, Oga, in our own parlance, in the Nigerian parlance, you know, in the pidgin parlance, and say, we've looked at this case and it's a civil matter. Go to court. He's your tenant. If you want him out of your premises, do the proper thing. Issue him the statutory notices. Go get a lawyer and go to court.
Go get a lawyer and go to court.
That's right.
So this time around, I'm going to be asking, what's the attitude of the judiciary generally? Do you think the judiciary has done enough to kick out some of these frivolous matters, some of these malicious matters, or we have a lot of victims that ended up being detained or being jailed because of that?
Yes, there are people who have ended up being jailed. And again, and very sadly too, not because there was evidence to have secured a conviction against them. But because in this climate, and very sadly, any practicing lawyer who is involved in criminal defense or litigation would confirm that they appear to be a tacit understanding or relationship between the magistrate, especially at that level, and the police.
Okay.
So much so that before some people are arraigned, the police would have gone ahead, very sadly. I speak with with all of my antecedents and my experience of more than 20 years. Let me just put it conservatively that way, and what I know, they would have gone ahead and seen the magistrate and said, this is what we want to do, and this is what we would like you to do for us.
So
there are magistrates who would tell them there and then and say, very sorry, sir, I cannot do that. You can take it to somebody else. And indeed, they would take it to somebody else. So you have a situation where even to get a banker's order, for instance, in an improbable case, in a wrong case, they could go to 5 magistrates, of different districts, magistrate district within Lagos, until they get to their person who would do their bidding. So they may have gone to 1 or 2 magistrates who want to do the upright, to do the right thing, and they say, no, I won't sign this warrant, I won't sign this banker's order, and they leave that one and go to another. And especially they have those who are very disposed to them, as I said. So that understanding exists between the police and some magistrate, and quite sadly. And so when such matters go before those kind of magistrates, you discover at the end of the day that an innocent person is convicted, even though that conviction might be overturned at the high court or at the higher level.
Higher level. Okay. Quite saddening, as you said, that judges and magistrates could be influenced to give judgment just to favor a particular party, even when you see an innocent person being maliciously prosecuted. But what's your last word or your advice to the judiciary, especially based on what you just said?
Yeah, of course, the symbol of justice is there. It's known. A blind lady, a blindfolded lady. Yeah. She may not be blind. Blindfolded lady.
Blindfolded.
With a scale of justice, saying the input of your evidence will determine where it tilts. Let that be the standard for all matters, civil or criminal, so that an innocent person, because the policy of our jurisprudence, our criminal jurisprudence, we all know that we all thought, is that it is better for 9 criminals to escape justice than for one innocent person to be punished. For what he didn't do, of course, that's why we said to be an innocent person. So let the things weigh on the mind of any person who occupies the sacred position of that judicial office, who determines the fate of people. And I mentioned in the other episode and said, why don't we give ascendancy to preliminary inquiry, especially in our climate, knowing the things. Nigeria police, sadly, I mean, it's our police. They do a lot of good things, but in this term,
they do a lot of good things.
In this term, yes, it's very, very bad. Because if we didn't have the police, we can't walk freely on the road. We can't sleep with our eyes closed. We know, but we know of too many instances, especially in the light of what we're discussing, where demands are made on people and say they brought the person wrongly to them and said, pay this amount, and he says they don't have. And they frame him for a charge that he knows nothing about. For instance, let's say we're in Oregon, as we are, and then they bring a bus and call Ikeja, all right? And then people at the bus stop enter, and they drive them to the station and begin to ask them, who are you? In your country, who are you? Or what do you do? Where's your ID card? If you don't have it, your ID card, they dump you in the cell, ask you to pay a certain amount, you can't pay, you end up in court for a framed or trumped up charge.
For a framed or trumped up
so these things happen very often, and I'm saying for the police, for the magistrates, And all of the participants, people
law
involved,
enforcement, the
yes, in the
judiciary,
criminal justice system
yeah.
especially, let's have a fear of God, all right, and do things, like I say, with the fear of God and according to the letters of the law, so that we don't punish innocent people. Oftentimes, some people end up in custody, their relations are not aware, they may have just come to Lagos, and they die in custody.
Thank you so much.
And of course, when that happens, God will request.
Okay, thank you so much, Barrister Takon. And Barrister Takon is advocating for the fear of God for our law enforcement agents as well as the judiciary. The members of the judiciary will call on you to use the fear of God in handling cases when there's no probable cause for a matter to be prosecuted. So just strike that case out and let justice be done. Barrister Takon, you know we have the bar book. And I would like you to give us your Latin maxim for the week.
My Latin maxim.
Let me quickly choose one before you take what I need to say or I have to say.
Amazing. You want to pick my brains.
So I want to go with impari delicto. Impari delicto is both parties are equally guilty.
Look at that.
Both parties are equally guilty.
Look at that. You really picked my brains.
No, I don't think that's what you wanted to say. Equity says, he who comes to equity must come with clean hands. So if you are equally guilty, you cannot come and say, I need justice to be done. So you must come with clean hands.
Exactly.
So.
All right, because you've taken that, I'll go for consensus ad idem.
Okay.
Consensus ad idem. Now, what that, it's a Latin maxim whose meaning is that parties are on the same page regarding what they want to do. That's to say, they are of the same mind. They are in agreement indeed, and none of them is mistaken as to what they want to do. Their minds have met squarely on the purpose, the subject, and the object of what they want to do. So when that happens, say parties are, that is consensus ad idem between the parties. Okay. There is effective agreement. That's what another way to put it. Effective agreement between the parties.
And even the Bible says two cannot work together unless they agree. So we get to find out more Latin maxims and legal jargons on the bar book. Stay with us. Well, that's the much we can take this week on the show, The Courthouse. And this week, we dedicated this episode to Reverend Dr. Chris Oyakhilome, the SCDD, PhD, the president of the Believers Love World Nation. We say a happy birthday to you, sir. An epitome of excellence, an icon of no mean repute, celebrated all over the world. And I say I love you, sir. If you have comments for us, we'd like you to log on to our website on www.loveoplus.org, or we'd like you to download our app as well on any of the mobile app stores. And we have numbers that will be showing on your screen now. You can send your comments to those numbers. I am Itohan Olomu-Agbodo. And I say, Don't just get mad. Go get a lawyer. Bye for now.